You are born into a town that needs blood, punishment, and someone officially assigned to handle the ugly part. Society's mind is already made up. Medieval people hate complexity as much as they love public punishment. Your family is useful, feared, and paid poorly in respect but strangely well in moral hypocrisy. Your father returns with stained gloves and an axe. The town needs him desperately but pretends otherwise. Everyone wants justice until they have to stand near the man who physically delivers it. Stigma is one of the few things medieval society distributes for free and in reliable quantity. The system insults you publicly and compensates you just enough to keep the arrangement professionally disgusting. Before you understand law, you understand spectacle, and here it comes with rope and applause. Death is not hidden from you, it is infrastructure. Your life will be skill, isolation, and fear, a profession everyone condemns right after buying tickets emotionally. Childhood becomes apprenticeship. The second your family realizes society has already ruined your career options for you. Every instrument has to work perfectly because incompetence in this profession becomes public theater very quickly. This is where education takes an unexpected turn from literacy to how not to botch a beheading in front of 200 deeply judgmental peasants. Medieval vocational training remains charmingly direct, if grim, precise, and one lawsuit away from theological crisis. You are learning the trade properly now, which means building the stage before pretending to hate the play. This is when you realize punishment is not abstract. It has a face, a voice, and usually terrible timing. Nothing unites a town like collective moral superiority with front-row access. Skill matters here more than mercy ever gets credit for, because a clean death is the only kindness this profession can smuggle in. You learn the deeper lesson quickly. Punishment is never just for the condemned, it is for the audience. You are not becoming a monster, which is awkward, because everyone already plans to treat you like one. By adolescence, you understand your position perfectly. Indispensable, tolerated, and spiritually quarantined. Society handles you the medieval way. Use the labor, reject the laborer, and call it moral. Justice arrives with paperwork, ritual, and an alarming amount of hardware. This is not freelance violence. It is state-sanctioned ugliness with an official seal. Your first solo assignment is intimate enough to permanently rearrange your relationship with sleep. You do not get to refuse emotion, only postpone it until the crowd has gone home. The law is pleased, the audience is fed, and your soul has an administrative problem. Medieval mental health care remains, as usual, deeply committed to not existing. Family wisdom. Be fast, be accurate, and let everyone else pretend they are cleaner. You've entered the profession. Everyone will need you while insisting you are the problem. Professional life begins with maintenance. Medieval justice is many things, but it is never forgiving of technical failure. The law always sounds cleaner on parchment than it does once you sharpen it. Your first major public execution. Civic morality wears its best clothes to watch someone die correctly. Ceremony exists mainly to make violence feel organized, which humans find emotionally soothing for terrible reasons. In this moment, the whole town is relying on you, which will not stop them from despising you by lunch. Skill matters. A fast death is the only mercy this economy of punishment accidentally allows. The state got its example, the crowd got its feeling, and somehow you remain the contaminated one. Medieval towns move on quickly, mostly because vegetables sell better when the blood has been rinsed off the cobblestones. Public hypocrisy remains one of the profession's most stable working conditions. You've done the town's dirtiest work. Now they reward you by acting spiritually offended that you exist. Then the job expands, because killing alone apparently was not enough administrative creativity for medieval law. This is not random cruelty naturally, this is regulated cruelty, which medieval institutions considered a major ethical upgrade. The trick is to look steady enough that everyone else can pretend procedure has replaced horror. Nothing says civilization like accurate note-taking during organized torment. You are not here to decide guilt, only to make certainty expensive enough to buy, which is a deeply inspirational legal principle. The powerful adore moral distance. It lets them sign pain without getting any on their sleeves. No guild handbook exists for how to talk about your day after spending it as the legal hand of terror. Medieval psychology remains aggressively underfunded, so your trauma will be self-managed with alcohol, silence, and unfortunate competence. You are now the town's professional edge, where law stops talking and starts hurting people. Outside work, life is a strange category. Not welcome, but necessary and paid just enough to remain useful. Your money spends fine. Your presence does not. Medieval society is efficient at making sure shame becomes hereditary when useful. The town despises you publicly but compensates you with grim perks nobody else wants. This is your benefits package: blood-adjacent salvage and institutional disgust with optional side income. Hypocrisy grows beautifully when practical needs meet ceremonial purity. Intimacy with the body makes it hard not to learn how it works in both directions. Genuine gratitude arrives so rarely it feels more suspicious than contempt. You are part of the town in every way except belonging, a fun social arrangement. The town needs your hands, fears your presence, and calls this moral order with a straight face. By now, your reputation has fully matured. Not respected, just carefully avoided like a walking reminder of consequences. You are both nightmare and entertainment. A fascinating career niche if you enjoy being a moral contradiction. Money works fine, dignity less so. Medieval economics remains beautifully selective. Of course, when things get truly unpleasant, suddenly everyone remembers your address with impressive accuracy. Society rejects you publicly and depends on you privately. Honestly, their most consistent personality trait. At some point, you stop asking whether this defines you and start asking whether anything else was allowed to. Religion remains extremely committed to moral clarity, as long as someone else handles the messy parts. The town celebrates life enthusiastically on a foundation that includes your daily contribution to death. Belonging here is a privilege reserved for people who can pretend they are not part of the same system. You are surrounded by life, commerce, and people, and somehow remain professionally alone inside all of it. Then comes the big one, the execution everyone's been discussing like a holiday with better marketing. The crime matters, but the spectacle matters more. That's why attendance is so impressive. This is where professionalism becomes the only thing standing between justice and a public disaster. Everyone wants closure, preferably delivered on time and without technical issues. Success earns silence. Failure earns legend. You'd strongly prefer the first option. The truth is, people don't just want justice. They want to feel something loud. Administration loves efficiency, especially when it involves cleaning up after itself. After the crowd leaves, the silence is much louder than the execution ever was. Cities have an incredible ability to forget things they just paid attention to intensely. You performed perfectly. By evening, you'll be treated like a moral inconvenience once again. The work does not follow you home physically, but your mind insists on bringing a full copy anyway. Conversation here is delicate, because describing your day accurately would ruin dinner permanently. Memory becomes your unofficial coworker, persistent, detailed, and impossible to fire. The problem with repetition is not boredom, it is accumulation. Medieval coping strategies are simple. Drink, pray, or pretend your brain is not quietly reorganizing itself around trauma. The town sleeps well, which is a fascinating outcome considering how it spends its afternoons. Death infrastructure does not clock out. It just waits politely for the next appointment. At some point, this stops being a job and becomes your entire legal personality. You are no longer shocked by the work, which might be the most alarming development of all. You keep doing the job because someone has to, and everyone else has already decided it will be you. Time passes, but your reputation refuses to age gracefully. It just becomes more established, like mold in a damp cathedral. Authority refreshes itself constantly, but your role stays exactly the same: unpleasant, required, and socially radioactive. Congratulations, the cycle continues. Now you get to professionally ruin someone else's future with valuable career skills. You remember that feeling vaguely, like a moral reflex you eventually trained into silence for efficiency reasons. At this point, your body knows the job better than your conscience does. which is a fascinating development if you enjoy internal conflict. And here it is. The question everyone asks right before realizing the answer is deeply inconvenient. Because the honest answer would require a therapist, and medieval Europe strongly prefers priests and denial. You see your past in his face, the confusion, the disgust, the realization that this is now his life too. This is what adaptation looks like, not healing, just efficient continuation. You are no longer just the executioner, you are now the system teaching itself how to continue. The work does not slow down. Society still has a steady demand for consequences delivered publicly. Every now and then, the system hands you someone who looks more like a person and less like a lesson. The audience has evolved. More enthusiastic, still absolutely convinced this makes them righteous. Professionalism becomes the last remaining form of mercy you can still control. You do your job perfectly again. Remembered by nobody except the part of you that keeps count. There's the difference now. He feels it, you manage it, neither of you escapes it. The machine resets instantly. Efficiency is much more important than reflection. Every so often the routine cracks just enough to remind you this was never normal, just normalized. And now we arrive at the question your job was specifically designed to avoid answering. You do not decide justice, you just perform it, making you both central and completely expendable. Eventually, your life shrinks into routine. Work, maintenance, sleep, repeat, a cycle so clean it almost looks respectable from far away. There is comfort in precision, which is deeply inconvenient when your profession revolves around ending people. Society continues to function beautifully as long as it does not have to sit next to you while doing it. Rare moments like this feel suspicious, like emotional traps disguised as human decency. Turns out you adapted so well to rejection that normal interaction now feels like a technical error. Religion continues to discuss your job in theory while you handle the practical side with considerably less applause. You recognize yourself, unfortunately, there is no alternate version left to compare against. The job does not end, it just waits, which is honestly worse than constant action. Medieval career planning is refreshingly simple. You keep doing this until you physically cannot. You are no longer just doing the job, you are the job, and separating those two ideas is no longer considered necessary. Eventually, you stop being the blade and become the memory attached to it. Society remains adaptive. New hand, same hypocrisy, no delay in service. Every sound outside translating itself into procedure in your head. Objects age better than souls. A professional inconvenience nobody mentions. The profession never belonged to you alone. It spread through the household like smoke. Lessons become simple. Be fast, be exact, and never confuse necessity with acceptance. The architecture of punishment outlasts every individual. Wonderfully efficient and devastating. The mind does not retire gracefully, it just replays the archive at reduced lighting. Not a monster, not innocent, just the man assigned to make morality happen. The town remembered the justice while never forgiving the hand. The city still calls for you on serious days, because when fear needs a clean performance, experience suddenly becomes very fashionable. Big cases are special, not morally, just socially. They attract richer gossip and better-dressed hypocrisy. Rank always improves the atmosphere of death. Same ending, better manners. It is unsettling when the man on the block understands the theater as well as you do. Pressure remains one of the few things your profession never fails to provide at premium quality. And there it is again. The one thing nobody wants to admit, mercy is measured here almost entirely in competence. Public memory works fast when spectacle is attached to class. He finally sees what this profession actually is. Not savagery, not evil, but institutional necessity with a human spine trapped inside it. Afterward, you sitting in silence, exhausted more by the ritual than the labor, feeling the job now as weight rather than motion. Old age changes the work. You carried out justice again, beautifully, efficiently, and with just enough humanity to make the whole arrangement look even worse. Age arrives the way it does for everyone. Except in your case, it also keeps a detailed portfolio of everything you have professionally repressed. You are still unwanted company, but experience has made you inconvenient to dismiss completely. The system is maturing beautifully, your replacement has trauma now, and the schedule remains unaffected. Occupational inheritance remains one of medieval society's most efficient ways to spread misery across generations. Skill here is not only physical, it is theatrical, administrative, and emotionally dishonest in all the legally approved ways. Then, one of them says thank you, which is almost unbearable because genuine humanity has terrible timing. Contempt is easy to carry, gratitude gets under the skin and starts asking questions. Justice updates its paperwork occasionally, the scaffold stays booked. Everything continues to function perfectly, which is honestly the most disturbing part. You are no longer merely surviving the profession. You are now old enough to see how effortlessly society replaces the hand while preserving the ritual. Eventually, the body begins resigning before the institution does, which is rude but consistent with every employer you have ever had. Reputation outlives usefulness beautifully, especially when society has spent generations feeding it with fear and convenient disgust. Your replacement now does the public work, and the town has transferred its moral nausea onto him with admirable efficiency. There it is again, the same question people ask when they want truth, but only in portions small enough not to spoil their lunch. You could say it was duty, service, law, all the words officials love when they are standing safely behind a desk. Instead, you answer more simply. It was work, fear, precision, isolation, and the constant burden of doing what everyone else demanded. You are no longer doing the job. You are now one of the ghosts it leaves behind for the living to misunderstand. In the end, there is no grand absolution, just a body that has finally reached its administrative limit. These hands held the town's justice together for decades, which still did not qualify them for dinner invitations. Dying people are expected to summarize history neatly, though history is just a blood-soaked contradiction. Maybe you remember the crowd, the condemned, or mostly the silence after everyone left. Professions like this do not merely train bodies, they contaminate futures with alarming efficiency. And that is how it ends. A necessary man finally becoming unnecessary. The town that needed you so often now manages a tasteful amount of distance. No statue is raised. People prefer symbols of justice without the worker attached. Life resumes instantly, because institutions hate lingering near those who make them look honest. For the first time in your life, the town cannot summon you to do its ugliest work. History performs its favorite trick, preserving the law and the kings while smudging out the man who physically made the verdict happen. The legend improves every generation, masking the real executioner, a worker trapped in a profession society designed and then disowned. Justice appears solemn and clean, hiding the mechanics of blood and municipal hypocrisy. Reality survives only in fragments. Polished memory hates the labor that ruins its moral posture. Identity dissolves into the machinery of town life. Every theater needs a stagehand nobody claps for. The costumes change, but the hypocrisy remains. Once the shouting stops, what remains is the faint smell of moral outsourcing. What were you? Butcher, servant, or just another human assigned to make society's violence look official? You lived as the hand of justice, and the world remembered the sentence while pretending the hand was the sin.